just to wait for the last attendees to join, and then we'll go straight into the webinar. Okay, thanks everyone for waiting. We'll go straight into the webinar now. I think we've allowed enough time for everyone to join. As mentioned before, hi everyone, my name is Adrian Klingenberg. You've probably heard me before in these webinars. I'm the Technical Director here at Esselar. Thanks very much for joining us today to run through the MobileIron iOS 8 update, which will be presented by Pete Wilson, who looks after the channel from a technical perspective here in the UK. Once Pete's completed, we'll run a Q&A session. You'll be able to pose live questions through on the Citrix GoToWebinar tool, the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and then we'll just finish off with a summary. So if I just then go on to who we are from an Esselar point of view. Formed 6 years ago, we're a very focused mobile IT integrator looking after very large enterprise customers here in the UK and globally. Our real focus is on mobility. We're quite a highly experienced team of people, bringing in a lot of resources from vendors such as Samsung and BlackBerry, and remaining very focused on delivering an enterprise-grade mobility service into our large corporate customers. Very much enterprise-focused. We are working with the leading technology, and one message we always want to get across to our customer is this is all we do. We don't lose focus on trying to deliver services and solutions outside of the enterprise mobility world. So what you'll be able to do is get some very focused and specialized skill sets from ourselves. Some interesting statistics which we always like to raise with our customers and audiences. The availability, the high impact that the mobile device has for the end user. I'm sure we're all pretty much aware that it's a very emotive subject, and there's a very direct one-to-one relationship with your smart device or whatever that may be. A lot different to what the traditional desktop IT relationship was with equipment and even services. So with that becomes a lot more, I think, exposure, visibility within organizations. C-level people are very interested in what's happening on their mobility strategy, probably more so than sometimes what's happening in core infrastructure and services. So I think all these statistics just really sum up why this is such a fast-growing market, very, very dynamic, very fluid, and why solutions such as MobileIron are able to achieve such great success as they have had, and Esselar has definitely seen that kind of growth and success following on from MobileIron. We build our proposition around this mobile-first framework defined on 3 pillars. So essentially we see organizations wanting to get connected first of all, and being able to remain connected wherever you are in the world, to be able to get control of that endpoint, so to ensure that no data leakage or data compromise occurs within the organization. And then once that control is gained, to actually deliver content to those endpoints, which then makes whatever the device at the other end a lot more valuable to the end user. With this, of course, comes challenges, and if these challenges didn't exist, companies such as ourselves wouldn't be in existence. So around connectivity, it's a consistent experience, ensuring performance is maintained, ease of use. You just want to get connected, and you want it to be seamless for your users, and of course have the coverage wherever you are. Around getting control, it's around visibility to the end organization, being able to audit what's on that end device, ensuring that users are accessing data that they should only have access to, ensuring that the data can't be leaked, ensuring that there's no ways of it leaving that device and getting out into the public if it's not meant for the public eye. Obviously controlling such things as bill shock. I think I heard on the radio this morning that some poor person had a £12,000 iPhone shock, bill shock from holiday. Again, just another one of many, many instances where such occurrences have happened because the controls on the data themselves aren't there. Luckily enough, O2 were very generous in being able to refund £7,000 of their £12,000 bills. So I don't know if that's a good thing or an actual insult, but again, just another example. And then also, you know, a lot of acronyms. I'm sure you probably are familiar with these now, but there's so many different deployment methods around it. Is it a personal device? Is it a corporate-owned device? Is it a corporately owned but personally enabled device? What we are able to do is actually clear a lot of the confusion around that and consult and actually create the correct strategy for yourselves. And then, of course, content. We all seem to be forced to using different ways of accessing data. Users will go out there and enable themselves if the organization or the corporate organization doesn't allow for corporate access to things like Dropbox or corporate applications, document management, and those types of solutions. And we use multiple different technology platforms to be able to deliver content through those mechanisms. So the solution is around connectivity. If you were on campus, a very, very mobile-centric, focused corporate Wi-Fi solution is what we do. This has become one of our more strategic areas. We are working with a very, very disruptive technology that's actually kicked out a lot of very traditional large incumbent solutions. So we're having a lot of success in that area. Having the ability to remain connected on public Wi-Fi, which assists with the bill shock element, but at the same time gives you probably a better connection speed and experience compared to traditional 3G and 2G networks. Traditionally, the control is based on what EMM is all about, and of course, MobileIron is the key theme of today's webinar. But we've also enabled technology which allows for the cost management side on bill shock and your connectivity. And then we provide solutions for file and sync share, as I mentioned, being able to print from your smart devices or mobile devices, and then enabling that device to either, you know, be fully secured in a container or a device-wide container, but at the same time not affect the end user experience. We deliver quite a robust security wrap around the whole of this proposition to ensure that whatever you are doing and however you're doing it, it remains secure. So such solutions as mobile malware detection, zero-day threat protection, and even app risk scoring. Find that traditional AV vendors in this area do struggle with mobility, and we deliver mobile-first-centric solutions. And then we also maintain our traditional web security and unified email management solutions. Only recently, we've really ramped up our support capabilities. We are really trying to define ourselves as a managed mobility service provider, aspirationally moving towards the MMS quadrant of Gartner. So we have a very robust 24/7 fully managed service offering now, based around 25 service desk engineers. We are able to offer both end-user support. This might be for just wanting to train up users on a new smart device that you might be corporately deploying, or even training them on a BYOD build that you've created specifically for your end users, and even for different user profiles. We can create such services as white glove services for executives, or even just, you know, have more stringent SLAs around exec VIP support. We've also partnered up with a very enterprise-focused app development agency who are very focused on enabling applications within the enterprise to be pushed out to mobile endpoints and being able to put the security wrap around that, which is quite a unique definement. Typical B2C app developers don't really get that function, and you'll find that they might give you a very user-friendly UI, but they struggle with the back-end integration and authentication methods. So we are able to provide some really focused skills in that area. Business process consultancy will be able to create the correct workflows for you, and with that, the correct mobile strategy, and ensure that your users are profiled and receive the right type of service for their business function. Very focused educational services now, so we're having a lot of success in actually not proactively educating customers, which is great for both sides. It lowers the support overhead, and at the same time it enables our users to get more out of the technology, but also at the same time pushes out the brand of our technology vendor partners, so their services are used in a more robust way to their full value. And even offer global on-site services now for where specific device provisioning requirements might be, or even a break-fix service for some of our wireless technology. So just to recap, we're in our 6th year of delivering enterprise mobile IT services. This puts us right ahead of the game from an experience point of view. We've been doing it for longer than a lot of the big outsourcers and the big operators. Very focused on this. This is all we do, so we are able to really understand how mobile works, what the current options are in the enterprise mobility world, and what the best solution for our own customers are. I think we're quite visionary in some of the areas. We are able to start taking products beyond what we do at the moment. So we should have a very exciting product release in the next few months around this type of area. And we have quite a proven track record with our great customer base and great customer history. And now what I'll do is I'll hand over to Pete from MobileIron, and I'll talk to everyone at the end on the catch-up. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I'm back on now. Okay, good. Thanks very much, Adrian, for that. And hopefully you can see my screen now. Hello, Adrian?
Hi, Pete. Yeah, we can all see it fine.
Okay, very good. I'll just go into full screen here. And yeah, that should be all up on your big screens now. Good. So yeah, thanks Esselar for putting this together, and for all of you for attending the webinar. As Adrian said, I'm Peter Wilson, and I'm the Technical Channel Manager for the UK and Ireland. And I want to talk to you today about iOS 8. We've got quite a lot to cover, so I'll go through this as quickly as I can to make the best use of everyone's time. I will be speaking about features and product roadmap a little bit during this presentation, so I have to put up this disclaimer that now that we're a publicly traded company, the lawyers make me do this. So yes, any forward-looking statements that I make don't represent a commitment or promise or legal obligation to deliver them, whether it's material, code, or functionality. And yeah, the release and the timing is all to MobileIron's discretion and things of that nature. So we won't go into product pricing, but anyway, that's the legal housekeeping out of the way. So iOS 8, let me, sorry, go back one slide. iOS 8 was, if I can figure out how to go back, yeah. iOS 7 was a huge release last year, and actually was the biggest release that Apple made in the operating system since iOS 4, especially for the enterprise. And we, MobileIron, were at the forefront of that release. We had day zero support for it. We put a lot of marketing material out there, and it was massively successful for us. Really, all of the features in iOS 7, many of the features were geared to enterprise and making this technology more viable for enterprise customers and business use. So that was, yeah, a huge moment for us. And so building upon that success that we had last year, we continued the campaign with iOS 8, because really the features that I'm going to be showing you in the next 15 minutes or so are features that Apple is bringing to the table that builds upon the foundations they set with iOS 7. And so what we're doing at MobileIron is we want to be the source that you go to whenever you need information about iOS 8, the features that relate to enterprise and business use, that the first person you comes to mind is ourselves and our channel partners like Esselar. If you go to mobileiron.com/iOS8, we've got a special landing page there, a web page with videos and lots of material, white papers you can download, and all sorts of material there to help you through the various features of iOS 8, which I'll be introducing in this webinar. So my agenda really is I want to go over the overview of what iOS brings, talk about MobileIron's readiness for those features and iOS 8 in general. Then we'll talk about the feature roadmap for MobileIron Core, which is our on-premise version of the product. And then we'll look very briefly at what's coming in the cloud version of MobileIron, and then just wrap up on the resources. So It's pretty much what you have to look forward to here. So what did iOS really bring? The first thing that they brought was these life-critical data, and that's the Health app and the HomeKit. And when you look at those, you might think to yourself at first, well, those are very consumer-centric apps. They don't really have any bearing on business, and that's true to an extent. But what it does mean is that these devices are going to be even more important to the individual employees. It's going to contain even more personal information on those devices, and therefore keeping that boundary, that separation between corporate applications and personal applications becomes all the more important. So you have to have a solid enterprise mobility management strategy in place with a good solution, the right competencies from your consultants like Esselar to really put into place the right policies to protect that personal data. Now that these devices are storing that, I mean, you can imagine if employees had all of their blood pressures and glucose levels recorded on the device, and if IT were to accidentally wipe that device and they lost that data, it could open up the enterprise to some significant risks. So we obviously have lots of ways to avoid that scenario from playing itself out. There's also enhancements now in iOS 8 for data shifting, and that really means that you can start work on your laptop, continue it on your iPad exactly where you left off, and take that out the door and really move data and content and workflows between one device and the next. So we'll talk more about that as we go through these slides. Apple is making authentication much less obtrusive. So this is the ability now to use that Touch ID for applications as well. It used to be only for unlocking the device and for doing iTunes purchases, but now with iOS 8, they're opening up this Touch ID to third-party applications, and developers can actually leverage those APIs, including MobileIron. So we're looking at that as well. And then the next one is that Apple is looking very seriously at content lifecycle as well. So this is the ability to actually move documents automatically down to users' devices and put them into ebooks, or iBooks, I should say, in Apple's language. So, and the other thing that they've really done is they've, in terms of content lifecycle, is actually the ability to share your screen with an Apple TV in a conference room much more easily than it was in the past, or much easier than it was in the past. So if you've ever tried to do this, and I have probably about a dozen times in the last year, tried to walk into a conference room at a customer site or partner site, you try to project your iPad up on their Apple TV in the conference room, and I think I've got it working once or twice. And the reason why is because the Apple device, the Apple TV, has to be on the same Wi-Fi network as the iPad. If you're coming in as a guest, you're not on the right network, and then you need a password PIN to get into the Apple TV, and it just doesn't work very seamlessly. So to make all that much easier now, what Apple's introduced is peer-to-peer AirPlay. And so you can actually walk into a conference room, have a peer-to-peer Wi-Fi connection directly to the Apple TV without using the corporate Wi-Fi, and project your screen without having to jump through all those hoops as you had to do in the past. So definitely looking forward to that. It just makes these devices a lot more usable in a work setting. And in terms of enhanced end-user productivity, Apple's made pretty significant strides in their PIM, personal information management apps, so contacts, calendar reminders, and email, and the way that we can take corporate data and move those between other third-party apps. And they've also focused on continuing to simplify the IT administration and security for these devices. And definitely those APIs that get opened up to enterprise mobility management players, such as ourselves, is what I'll be covering. So key highlights, we've got these enhanced capabilities, really, and it's these life-critical health apps and home apps. And it just means that you have to have a mobile strategy in place to protect this highly sensitive personal information that's in those apps, making sure that they don't leak into business apps, or business apps don't interfere with them. We also have these new document provider APIs in iOS 8. So now third-party application developers can actually look at these APIs to how you manage documents coming in and out of them, and the iBooks for pushing out documents from a corporate content directly into iBooks. And that drives into the content lifecycle management there. So going back to this concept here about the life-critical capabilities, obviously the health kit, the life kit. If you thought that having full device wipe capability that we got accustomed to 10 years ago for device management was sufficient, well, this pretty much is the last nail in that coffin to put that argument to bed, because obviously full device wipes just simply will not do anymore. We can't go in there putting a device under management that has personal data on it, especially life-critical personal data, and then being able to wipe all of that. So those days of full device wipe are over completely, and now the importance, and really this is MobileIron's innovation, where we started out in 2009 and got the first patent for this, is keeping the data for the corporate use completely separate from the personal data on the device. So when a device is compromised from an IT security point of view, and IT has to take some protective action against that device to protect their data, their content, they only affect the data that belongs to them, but all of the personal health application data, the music collections, the photos, the video libraries, etc., personal email accounts are not affected by that corporate action. So the app development guidelines, these are new iOS 8 features. It means that third-party apps can take advantage of the native OS sharing extensions. Custom keyboards can be used across the third-party applications. Apple has also opened up APIs now for cloud storage, so things like Box, Dropbox, and of course you can see a lot of development going into iCloud as well. So now PDFs, and it's not just the iCloud data from Pages, Numbers, and Keynote that can be stored in iCloud, but really any corporate document, PowerPoint slides, Word documents, etc., can all, from third-party applications, make their way into iCloud. So controlling that content and making sure that corporate data is protected and doesn't leak into those untrusted clouds is an important part of your security considerations with iOS 8. So we'll talk about that. There's also enhancements to photo editing and letting applications like the photo editor use their capabilities directly into third-party apps. Third-party apps can interact more seamlessly with the notification center as well. So this is important from a data point of view for corporates too, because you don't want sensitive data popping up in notifications. Obviously, if those notifications were unlocked, coming up on the lock screen of the device, then now you'd be exposing that sensitive data to any eye that could pick up the phone. So it's all stuff to consider when you're looking at your mobile policies now. It's becoming more complex as the devices become more powerful and the features of the operating systems become deeper and more ingrained, then the complexity of the mobile deployment becomes more, and the amount of planning that you put into it is all the more important. So with this content lifecycle management now, the ability to push down ebooks and PDFs into the iBooks client, you can create the content on your back end, publish that content silently out to the mobile devices, so employees don't have to accept the push. You can just really literally silently over the air push that document out to them and keep that content up to date at all times, so they always have the latest copy in offline mode. And ultimately at the end, whether that device will no longer be used for corporate purposes, or the employee leaves the organization, get lost, stolen, right, the typical scenarios, then the enterprise can always remove that content when it's no longer needed on the device. The other interesting thing that with iOS 8 is this concept of handoff and continuity. So this means any device that you may have that's signed into the same iCloud account can now share the work that you're doing in Mail, Safari, Pages, Numbers, Keynote, Maps, Messages, Reminders, Calendar, Contacts, etc. Yeah, any of those. If you're looking at your calendar on your desktop and you suddenly have to rush out the door and you just pick up your iPad, you can then immediately unlock your iPad and go straight to the calendar you're looking at on your desktop. If you're manipulating a page document on your iPad on the train, home, sit down at your desk, you can then bring up all the work that you were doing in that document on the train directly onto your desktop and move that work from one device to the next. And I'm sure most of you are the same as me. On your desk, you've got your desktop or your laptop. My laptop actually never leaves my desk anymore, because whenever I go away from my desk, I just take my iPad with me, and my iPhone's always in my pocket. So yeah, the ability to take that content and move work from one device to the next is super convenient, and makes the mobile devices all the more important to the employees' work-life balance, I would say. and just makes it easier for them to be productive on their mobile device. It's not that their work is locked into their desktop and that's the only place they can get things done and be productive. This just makes it all the more easier for them to be productive on the mobile device as well. So actually, with this handoff and continuity concept of iOS 8, there's minimal security concerns actually, because if you hand off a URL, you're browsing the intranet on your desktop, you have a VPN connection established, you hand off that URL over to the mobile device, that mobile device won't be able to open the URL without first establishing a VPN. So there isn't really any security concerns. It's not like it's actually scraping the screen and taking all that internet content to put it onto an unmanaged and unsecured device. No, it doesn't work that way. It actually just hands off the URL. Only, presumably, if you have your mobile strategy set up properly and you're managing with the advice of Esselar and MobileIron, then when that URL lands on the iPad and is handed off to the iPad will only be able to open it once it establishes that VPN connection and MobileIron is satisfied that the device is under management and is in compliance with your security policies. So you wouldn't be able to hand it off to your child's iPad and suddenly the child's iPad gets sensitive corporate data on it. It doesn't work that way. Same thing with a mail handoff. Any attachments that are in those email messages, it finds the message in the mobile device, in the inbox of the mobile device, and whatever security policies you have on the mobile device to protect that email come into play. So yeah, same thing with context counter messages there. So our recommendation at MobileIron is leave it on. It just makes the mobile device, as I said before, more relevant to the employees and makes productivity easier for them. So the easier we make it for them to do their jobs, the more satisfied they are, the more value you get out of your mobile investment at the end of the day. So another thing that Apple has introduced with iOS 8 is this concept of Safari downloads or managed Safari downloads. It does require enterprise mobility management, so you cannot take advantage of this feature and many of the other features I'm talking about today without an enterprise management platform such as MobileIron. What this does is it builds upon iOS 7's concept of managed applications. So hopefully you're familiar with what managed applications are. I suppose in a 30-second nutshell, the difference between a managed application and an unmanaged app is that the managed applications are typically business-related apps that you install through your Enterprise Mobility Management App Store. So rather than going directly to the Apple App Store to get whatever the document editor is or your PDF viewer, you would actually just go to the MobileIron App Store instead and download that app from MobileIron. In the background, we always pull it from the Apple App Store, but because it came through us before it went onto the device, we register that application as managed, and we can therefore put down controls over that application that unmanaged applications wouldn't be able to take advantage of. So as you can see on this screen here, I've got a couple of business apps with a little padlock on them, indicating that those applications were actually installed through the MobileIron App Store, so they're managed. Facebook and the social messenger app were just downloaded directly from the App Store, so they're not managed. And when you open up a domain from Safari, the domain that you're opening is actually going to be defined through MobileIron, whether it's a managed domain or an unmanaged domain. So if that's a managed domain, then corporate content is coming down to the device. That corporate content, those files, let's say you were downloading a PDF from that web page, that PDF would only be openable to the managed applications in this diagram. So you would not be able to share that content with Facebook and the other social messaging app in this example. Okay, so it does give you limited data loss protection through the Safari web browser, but we do not have the ability through any APIs on iOS yet to remotely wipe the Safari cache. If you need full data loss protection and the ability to manage the cache on the web, then you would have to take a look at MobileIron's Web at Work solution, where we add those additional value on top of what the native Safari offers. Okay. Here's the one about extending Touch ID to app developers. So any third-party app developer now can actually get access to these APIs. There is a control in MDM now with iOS 8 where the Enterprise Mobility Management Solution, i.e. MobileIron, can turn that on or off. So if you disable this at the EMM level, you say Touch ID for third-party apps is disabled, even if the developer put that logic into their app, the app would not be able to use the Touch ID. Yeah. And it is multi-factor authentication, but so a lot of stories came out last year when Touch ID made its way into the iPhone 5S, and thinking, wow, what does this mean from a security point of view? You know, can you do things like Mission Impossible and take someone's fingerprint on a piece of sellotape and put it over the scanner and still get into the device? Well, no, it's not a risk. What it really comes down to is this: is that the fingerprint ID becomes a synonym for your lock code on the device. So if your device is protected by a 4-digit PIN or a 6-digit PIN or some complex passcode, the fingerprint merely becomes a synonym for that passcode. It's not a replacement for that passcode. You can't have fingerprints registered, in fact, until you establish your PIN code on the device in the first place. So it doesn't override all of the security. If you could trust your employees with a 4-digit PIN before, then there's no reason to disable the Touch ID authentication, because actually it's exactly the same as having the 4-digit PIN. It's backing that up. It's a synonym to it. The only thing you've got to watch out for is this multiple fingerprint issue. So my son frequently uses my iPhone. When I got my iPhone 5S, he was fascinated with this Touch ID thing. So I actually just registered his fingerprint as one of the fingerprints on my device, so he could unlock it with his thumb, and I could unlock the device with my thumb as well. But actually, that's exactly the same as me giving him the 4-digit PIN on my iPhone 4. So from a security point of view, if the employee gives the 4-digit PIN to someone else, they've breached security. If they register someone else's fingerprint on the device, they've breached security. So it doesn't really pose any additional security threat from that point of view. Okay. So anyway, you have to work with the app developers. If you're developing your own apps for corporate use, and they're going to be private applications, you can develop with these APIs in mind. Use MobileIron to enforce the password protection on the device, and then back it up with the fingerprint synonym, and let your applications take advantage of it. Again, if you can make it easier for your employees to authenticate to the applications you're developing so they can get their jobs done, the happier they'll be at the end of the day. They don't have to do that 4-digit PIN every time they try to get some work done on the device. So yeah, it's good to use the technology when it's available. And we're actually going to be adding this to the App Connect framework. Hopefully you're familiar with the MobileIron App Connect framework. If you're not, Esselar will be happy to tell you about it. It's outside the scope of this presentation, but we'll be introducing Touch ID into our security framework in early 2015. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry about the formatting on this. This is extensibility in iOS 8, and what it means is that you can take a piece of content, put it into application number 1, third-party app managed application through MobileIron, download it from the MobileIron App Store, edit that content, but then let's say that you have a second application which is used for watermarking those documents and putting an electronic signature on it. You can actually, with these extensibility APIs, use the functionality of application number 2 directly in app number 1 without exiting app 1 and going into app number 2. So app 1 is actually making API calls to app number 2 and saying, hey, I want to grab the watermark from you. The user actually stays in app number 1. They don't know what's happening in the background, but app number 1 can silently and invisibly make a call to number 2, take the functionality from app number 2, and apply that work or that change directly into itself in app number 1. And then ultimately, then we need to protect that content to make sure it doesn't go into untrusted cloud networks and that stays within corporate control. So if you use this in conjunction with enterprise mobility management, you would have complete management of that content as it goes through the life cycle of these various applications interacting with each other, as well as when the application flows off the device and goes out for storage. iOS 8 also introduces enhancements to single sign-on that was introduced in iOS 7. So what they're allowing now is certificates for single sign-on in applications. It still requires a MobileIron Sentry, though, to use the Kerberos proxy. So it's whatever technology we introduced in iOS 7 to make single sign-on work in those days is still applicable to iOS 8, and you still need that. So enterprise mobility management is still very key to using these functionalities. iOS 8 also extends data protection to calendar, contacts, reminders, notes, and messages, whereas in the past, the advanced data protection was only on the mail client. So now all the rest of the personal information management apps that you get natively on the iOS device take advantage of that encryption that gets turned on automatically in iOS when you have a device lock code. So for enterprise point of view, you have greater comfort that your personal information management data is protected at the same level as email. So again, iOS 8 has about 30 new features that are applicable to business users and business use cases. And the good news is about half of those actually require enterprise mobility management. So half of the features that iOS 8 released cannot be taken advantage of or leveraged unless you have a platform in place like MobileIron. So once again, Apple is validating our position in the market and the usefulness or the value of our and driving these use cases falls right into our hands, really, that you cannot take advantage of these features in an enterprise environment without an enterprise mobility management platform like ourselves. And you more than likely need, well, we don't sell directly to any customers, so you need to buy it through one of our resellers, Esselar being one of our best. And then, of course, they have all the consulting services to help you deploy that and put up the right policies to take advantage of all these new features. And the evolution of mobile is so fast that you can really look at needing these consultation services on an annual basis to take advantage of all the latest, greatest features that Apple rolls out, as well as the other Android and Windows Phone 8. So platform support, you can put iOS 8 on iPhone 4S and above, or iPad 2s and above, so pretty standard information. In conjunction with iOS 8, 2 new shiny pieces of kit came out from Apple, the 4.7-inch iPhone 6 and the 5.5-inch iPhone 6 Plus. All of those are available from September 19th. And we, MobileIron, had support for these brand new devices at the launch date. So you could take one from, if you're lucky enough to get your hands on one on actually September 19th, you can immediately point to MobileIron, register the device, and get your corporate email securely onto that device, as well as all your documents, intranet web pages, corporate applications, etc. So yeah, once again, we had that day 0. So let's talk about the readiness. For iOS 8 support, if you're an existing MobileIron customer, you need at least Core, or formerly known as the VSP. We now call it the Core server. So you need at least version 7.03 to register iOS 8 devices, and that's been out for several months, so we were prepared for that well in advance. The current release of Core is 7.1, so most of you should be running version 7.1 if you have iOS 8 devices, and also Sentry 4.9 supports it. So 7.1 is the current release, and the next release that we're launching imminently is Ottawa, version 7.5, codenamed Ottawa. There will be press releases and announcements and customer seminars and partner seminars and webinars that we'll be putting together for that. So stay tuned, always look at the MobileIron webpage, and then you'll see the announcements when 7.5 hits the streets. And we also have support for iOS 8 in MobileIron Cloud right on the day of the launch. And Mobile at Work, which is the client, was also updated at least a month before iOS 8 came out. So we had a chance to update that client before the OS was upgraded. So a couple of notes about App Connect. Again, if you need more details about Connect, Esselar will be happy to dive deep into that with you. If you are wrapping your applications to be App Connect enabled or security context aware, then those applications will need to be rewrapped and re-signed. That's an iOS 8 restriction and the way that iOS 8 changes the signing of applications. So if you're any of you using these wrapped apps, just be aware of that. We have a knowledge base article out on our support site on why you need to do it and how you do it, but a pretty easy process to get those applications compatible with iOS 8 again. If you developed your app using our SDK, as opposed to wrapping, if you use the SDK, then there are no known issues with iOS 8. Whatever was working for iOS 6 and 7 will continue to work in iOS 8. Okay, so let's look at the features in MobileIron Core. This is the on-premise deployment. So as you can see there, the Core server in this diagram typically sits in your DMZ. On top of that, we've got the traditional MDM technology, mobile device management technology. MobileIron, as you should be well aware, also has application management and content management services built on top of that core server. And we extend all of that out to the mobile device. So things that we're taking advantage of in the next release, which is imminent, the Ottawa release, we'll be able to take advantage of mark external email addresses, and I'll talk in detail about what that means in a minute. We also will have support for those managed domains, which I talked about for Safari. There's a new feature for email, per message S-MIME, which is quite interesting. New device restrictions will come on board. So currently 7.1 is compatible with iOS 8, but these new features that are available in iOS 8, you can't manage them yet until you go to 7.5. So anyway, we're just weeks away from that now. The new device restrictions that iOS 8 introduces will be available in 7.5, as well as new MDM queries. So those include the date of the last iCloud backup, and we also can get now a hash-signed version of the, or hashed version of the Apple ID that the employee is using on the device. So we don't actually get the real Apple ID, we just get a hash of it, and that's useful for Apple's volume purchasing program. Because now we can make links between the applications you're distributing through your enterprise that you may have paid for internally, and you want to deploy those paid applications out to your employees free of charge to the employee's point of view. So that's what the volume purchasing program is all about, and it really came out in iOS 7, so it's about a year old, that news. And another feature is the ability to clear the activation lock on iOS 7. So if you have activation locks on that device, the device, let's say, you tried to put in the password unsuccessfully more than 10 times, the device has been locked, you would have to connect to iTunes to unlock that device. We can now clear that over the air using an enterprise management platform as ourselves. So mark external email addresses, what this means to a business user. This means that you as the administrator can actually designate which email domains are managed. So if you're British Airways, for example, and your email domain is ba.com, you would mark inside MobileIron that ba.com is your corporate email domain. So as email addresses come down to the native email application on the device, any emails that come in from outside ba.com, who are not the ba.com domain, will be marked or highlighted. And so it'll be very easy for the end user to distinguish which emails are coming from inside the organization and which ones are coming in from outside. But in addition to that, you also are able now to leverage the concept of managed applications and managed content. So it really complements these other controls. So if an email comes in from ba.com, which is your managed domain, and it contains an email attachment, that email attachment is now considered a managed email content, managed email attachment. That application, if you try to open it, you would only be able to open it in managed third-party apps. So those are the applications which you downloaded through the MobileIron App Store. Any unmanaged applications which you got directly from Apple, which tend to be social applications, those attachments would not be openable in those private apps. So again, you're really limiting those attachments with a native email client to be opened only in the applications that you, IT, can trust and manage through MobileIron. So it plays really great into Docs at Work, another MobileIron solution, because those native email attachments that you're receiving could open up directly into Docs at Work, since Docs at Work is actually a managed application, of course. And it's the same thing with Safari downloads. So we're really leveraging the iOS managed open-in features that we put into the product last year with iOS 7. So it's just building upon what we did last year for iOS 7. I'm running a bit short on time, so let me see how fast I can go. This is just a screenshot. You really go into configurations, you create an iOS configuration for managed domains, and the next screen you get to define which email addresses, which email domains are managed. So miacme.com or ba.com, mobileiron.com, whatever you want that to be, those emails will be considered managed. Okay. Same concept with Safari downloads. We're able to use that open-in logic, which I described a minute ago, for anything you download through Safari. Administrators can actually designate which domains are managed. So again, ba.com, mobileiron.com, whatever your corporate domain is, any web pages you browse are considered managed at that point. And anything you download, you would not be able to open in unmanaged applications. So it's Apple's way of keeping corporate data out of the personal apps and only in the corporate apps that you're managing through MobileIron. And same workflow in the MobileIron screen. You just create an iOS managed domain configuration that will get pushed out to your devices. And underneath the email domains, you now have a box called the web domains, and you just put in as many web domains as you want to define which ones are managed. Yeah. And these features here, which I'm highlighting, are from iOS 7, actually, that we're just leveraging what we built in iOS 7 for these new iOS 8 features. So pretty easy from our point of view to turn all that on. Per app, per message S-MIME, this is the ability to encrypt individual messages. So it's per message encryption, but every single device, if you're using this, is signed. So with S-MIME, there's a difference between signing your emails and encrypting the emails. You have a certificate for signing and a certificate for encrypting and decrypting. If you want to use the per device encryption, per message encryption, every message from your device that you ever send will be digitally signed. So that's always on. What happens is with iOS 8 now is that when your employees are composing messages, they will have a lock icon appear in the client, in the native email client. So if they're composing an email to a colleague that's going to go to ba.com's internal email domain, they can then click on that lock icon, and when the message gets sent, the device will encrypt it with their certificate for encrypting messages. And the recipient, because they're part of the BA domain, would be able to get the decryption certificate to read that message. If the employee was sending a message to a customer, so they're on their ba.com email account, and they're sending it out to, I don't know, MobileIron, an external domain, they would not click on the lock code. They can send a digitally signed message, but it's not encrypted. It would be going outside the organization. So that's how the employees get to choose which messages they encrypt and which ones they don't. If you're using Sentry, MobileIron Sentry for attachment control, which is our version of encrypting attachments as they flow through our Sentry gateway, this is not compatible with that. Reason being, if you're encrypting the messages through the attachments are encrypted anyway, so you really don't need the Sentry section anymore on a per message basis. So yeah, there you go. And it's really easy to turn on. You just go into your email settings. If you're an existing MobileIron customer, you're familiar with this. This is how you push out your email profiles to the mobile devices. And we've just added a couple of checkboxes down the bottom here, which allows you to do per message encryption switch and enable that encryption switch on the device. So that lock code I was mentioning earlier, iOS 8 users will not see it unless their device is registered with an enterprise mobility management like MobileIron, and you, the administrator, make that part of their email configuration. Normal consumer users of iOS 8 will never see this functionality appear on their device. So again, Apple doing things that play into the EMM portfolio and strategy, and just shows how we add value. Okay, let's move through these for the interest of time. And we've got some new device restrictions here. So anytime you see the S on these lines, it means that the device has to be in supervised mode in order for you to take advantage of it. It means the restriction is not available for non-supervised devices. Again, Esselar will be happy to explain to you the difference between a supervised and unsupervised device, or non-supervised device. But if it is supervised, so that's a corporate-owned device that's flowed through IT and goes out to the end user's hands, it's a corporate-owned device, you have the ability now to disable profanity in Siri. So all those rude Siri messages or asking Siri rude questions that the teenagers love to do would be disabled on corporate devices now. Okay, so you can also, from a managed application point of view, any application you download through the MobileIron App Store, you can automatically disable them from storing data in iCloud. And that's a switch that you can now leverage inside MobileIron through our restrictions page. You can also allow or disable the backup of enterprise books. So if you're pushing out corporate content to your iBooks, then you can disable iBooks and backing that corporate content up to iCloud, again, protecting your corporate content. Also, if you're using your iBooks for highlighting or making annotations to PDFs, you can disable the synchronization of those notes so the master copies don't get impacted. Yeah, and then erase all the content and settings. So remember, that was the reset button. That so you had a device that was managed by MobileIron, and it was corporate-owned device. One thing that you couldn't do was actually disable the ability for the employee to just do a full wipe on the device, just reset everything. And so yeah, now they've got a corporate-owned device which they reset, and they register it with their own personal iCloud accounts, and they basically steal the device. Well, now with a supervised device, you as the enterprise can actually disable the employees from having that capability. They would not be able to reset the device anymore. And you can also disable the employees from being able to configure restrictions on the device. You can also disable handoff if you want to disable that handoff feature, which I mentioned before. You know, if you're looking at an email on your desktop, passing that email directly off to the mobile device is controllable now through enterprise mobility management restrictions. Okay, and podcasts can also be disabled on supervised devices. So this is the list of restrictions that MobileIron has, and we've been building on them since iOS 4. We can see in there we've got some iOS 5 and later, some iOS 6, iOS 7 and later. Now we've got the iOS 8 and later features which you can control through. And then we also specify which of these functions or restrictions need to be supervised mode. So I'm conscious I've only got 8 minutes left, and I want to give Adrian a little bit of time at the end. Anyway, we're getting pretty close like this. So from a cloud point of view, we've got a couple of releases which are imminent. Cloud version 2.7 allows you to do the new device restrictions, which I just covered. We've also taken advantage of the new MDM queries, which relate to the hashed version of the Apple ID, as well as the last iCloud backup and things of that nature. We also have the ability to set the device name, quite useful for corporate-owned devices. Now the employees don't get to name their device. You, as the enterprise system administrator, get to name every device that's under management. So from an inventory control point of view, you can use variables that come from your LDAP, for example, your Active Directory, pass those through MobileIron, use those variables to automatically name your devices. So you could have European sales device 1 and America's engineering device number 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then we can also clear that restrictions password using the cloud version of MobileIron or software, and also support for one-time passwords and Wi-Fi. We can also allow or stop enterprise books from being backed up. The synchronization of the notes and the highlights in the ebooks to be synced, we can stop that in the cloud. Spotlight search and internet results can be disabled. And that's important, right? Because if you're using Spotlight, and it could automatically go through your corporate apps and get corporate content as a search result, and that could expose your sensitive data in the Spotlight search. So that's why Apple decided to make this managed through Enterprise Mobility EMM on a supervised device, and you may want to turn that off on corporate-owned devices. Okay, and then with MobileIron Cloud, we can also restrict applications from using Cloud Sync or the continuity. So the handoff, continuity and handoff are synonymous. And also we can stop podcasts on the devices and prevent users from resetting their devices when it's under management. But notice that that ability to stop the reset is only for supervised devices. That means that if employees are bringing their own device to work, BYOD, it's not an enterprise device, the employee still has the ability to always wipe the device. Hey, after all, it belongs to them. It's their personal device. So it's only when it's a corporate device that Apple decided to prevent employees from doing the wipe or the reset. Okay. So let me skip through that. Okay, then as cloud continues to evolve between now and the end of the year, we'll also add the ability to mark external email addresses, the ability to do always-on VPN. That means that if a device is under management, and whenever the employee powers it up, the VPN will be established automatically, and the employee will not be able to turn it off. So that allows you as the enterprise to take all the data traffic from those mobile devices that are under management and pass it through your various web filters and IT infrastructure, just as if it was a desktop on the corporate LAN. And the certificate support for single sign-on will also be coming into cloud in the 2.8 version, which is again imminent, as well as the managed books and PDFs, managed Safari downloads, and the content filtering for third-party apps. So building on top of that, the next release will be cloud version 2.9. We do these releases almost on a monthly basis really for the cloud. The cloud upgrade cycles are much faster than the on-premise. The on-premise gets a major upgrade every 3 months, typically for MobileIron. Cloud gets an upgrade every month. So per message S-MIME will be coming in, as well as the VPP support, the ability to clear that activation lock. I'm pretty much finished now. Just remember, from a resource point of view, I don't have a slide for it, but go to mobileiron.com/iOS8. And as I said, we've got plenty of 3-minute videos there that goes and shows you demos on the features that I just introduced to you here. We've also got white papers you can download to learn about these features in more depth. Again, anything that questions you have about how iOS 8 impacts you from an enterprise point of view, data security point of view. All of the resources are definitely available on iOS 8 and our iOS 8 webpage at MobileIron.com. And of course, Esselar is happy to have extensive conversations with you about it as well. So that's it. So Adrian, thanks again, and thanks you to the audience. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Pete. That was really useful, and I think one of the most exciting, well, the most exciting Apple launch, and for enterprise especially. I think some of the new features are very interesting, and yeah, again, get Apple and iOS more into the enterprise grade than ever before. So yeah, just to wrap up, everyone, thank you very much for joining. I hope you find it interesting. Again, please visit esselar.com to find out any more information about what you heard today, or any more information on our upcoming webinars. We have one question from one of the attendees. Pete, this is for you. Do you have a rough date for the release of the Ottawa MobileIron edition?
Well, yeah, I do, but I'm afraid I can't disclose that because we're a publicly traded company now, and we don't want to. But the release will be, the announcement will be coming out very shortly from MobileIron, so stay tuned. Always go to the MobileIron.com webpage, and you can also get on to let Esselar know, and as soon as we tell our partners the release date, they can tell you. So I'm afraid that's the best I can do for that question. But it is imminent. It's right around the corner. Not long to wait now.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much again. We'll wrap it up there, and I look forward to you joining our next webinar. Thank you.